Headset. No problem. Are we good to go? All right. All right. Good morning. All right. Well, let's see. I see fists going in the air. That's probably not a good thing. So this year has been very entertaining. We decided we were going to produce the show at a new location. We picked a whole new venue. We're super excited about our new venue. We've always had issues with the Microsoft campus because we get to play this game every morning. You never know what AV system we're going to end up with. It's hard to even know what room we're going to be in. We usually end up having to reset the room. And we wanted to be able to control our own destiny. So we decided we were going to pick a new venue.
Something that was right in our own backyard, literally. We had no idea until one day we said, well, let's go look. And we're getting comments from the peanut gallery as well.
Thanks, Mike.
And we found a beautiful venue. We'll show you some photos, and I don't know that we have any video, but we certainly have plenty of photos we'll share with you throughout the day so that you can anticipate next year.
That's what I'm wondering. Hey, John, can we do a test with you real quick and see if your audio is okay?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
You need to hold that spot after you.
Am I? Yeah. Is John's audio okay?
Can everybody hear me? Test 1, 2, 3.
Maybe a little more. You're a sales guy. You haven't been talking for long for that.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could easily go ahead and give a dissertation on something if you want.
So we've got some feedback in the room. We might have your audio may be fine. It might just be me. So if that's the case, we could proceed.
Do you happen to have a YouTube window open?
No.
Because that was
Yep.
If you really think about it, I mean, if we are all social distancing, the echo is just the reverberation, like in the stadium effect.
The big empty rooms that we're all in now.
Exactly. That's what it is.
So apparently it exists in Zoom as well. Hey, John, maybe you want to give us some audio we can test with?
Sure. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm not sure what that's getting. I see shaking heads, so maybe not. All right, we'll try some more audio, see if this helps. I see video going out there. Let's see if our audio is any good this time.
Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Test. Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Test.
Yeah. That sounded. You sound good, John.
Perfect.
Let's see if it works here. Well, we'll see what happens when it gets out to YouTube. Still no. John, so they're saying that it would be helpful if you could keep talking so that they have a audio source to play with.
Sure. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're gonna get snow maybe out here, cold temperatures in northern Wisconsin right now. So, yeah, I hope it's warmer and better over there by you guys. I don't know if that's helping or not. I get it's kind of like the back of the radio days. I got to kind of come up with some filler. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to say over now, right?
Yeah, over.
Yeah, we actually have one of our concerns was that we have maybe the nicest day so far this year.
We can do some about 3 hours to everywhere in the United States and stuff, so it does work out pretty good. But we're not that bad. People, when I tell them I'm from northern Wisconsin, they say by Minnesota, and instantly it goes, oh, Fargo. Oh yeah, no, we're not.
You do that pretty well, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of people say. And I do have to admit, I have put potato chips on a casserole. So, we're there. We're close. We're close enough.
All right. So, yeah, I was going to say, for us, the problem with living in the corner of the country is that, wow, to go to Orlando, for example, for a hamcation in February there. Oh yeah, that's an all-day deal. Well, and then 3 time zones, and it's leave crazy early in the morning and get there at dinner time, right?
Yeah, that's a long I usually call it time traveling. That's what I told her. Like I went back and back in time, folks.
Are we good? Hey. Well, that's fantastic. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. Sorry for this delay. There's always this fiddling, and we actually did a full-scale practice last weekend to make sure we had everything nailed down. It all worked perfectly, and then we get to start our course today. So anyway, everyone's going to see that we're streaming this to YouTube. We'll have, at the end of this session, we'll have a breakout room so people can go ask the presenter. John is going to be hanging out for a little bit, right, John?
Yes, that's correct.
And we'll have a breakout room. You can ask him one-on-one questions, and we're going to have all this stuff recorded. We'll have it up on the YouTube stream for review. So I would like to make a couple points about the breakout room. It has a size limit, so we chose YouTube to stream because we really don't know how many people are going to show up today. So we wanted to make sure we could handle any size event, and that's not necessarily true of the breakout room. We can get a larger one if it turns out to be super popular, but it may be an issue. So don't just hang out there unless you have questions or you really are interested in hearing what's going on. And of course, mute your microphone unless you're asking questions. And at the end of this, we'll have a survey on the website. So please feel free. In fact, you're welcome to use that survey as many times as you want during the day, after each speaker, whatever. More feedback is better. And of course, the last thing is there's a big donate button on the website so we can get some better equipment, apparently. Anyway, if you and a bigger breakout room, right on. So feel free to fill out the survey and donate as many times on either one of those as you want. So with that, let's go ahead and start. Our first speaker today is John Crook from Yaesu. He's been licensed since the mid-90s in northern Wisconsin and received the call N9 UPC as the luck of the draw. His love and passion for radio started him working in two-way radio in 1999. In addition to the passion for amateur radio, John has worked in law enforcement, fire, and is still a community critical care paramedic. Prior to working with Yaesu, John worked in public safety communications, dealing with the P25, APCO 25 trunking, paging, and simulcast systems. John has personally designed and installed numerous paging, trunking, and public safety systems. John is trained as a FEMA COML, COMT, and OXCOM, along with volunteering numerous hours, worked at local events requiring emergency communications and vital comms. He also serves as the Aries Races EC for St. Croix County and is the trustee and owner of 13 DR repeaters, imagine that, in which will be expanding to a total of 14 this year. He also has experience in FM, C4FM, P25 and Fusion, DMR, NXDN, and POCSAG paging. Don't let John's title as National Sales Manager, Fusion Specialist fool you. He's helped and planned the design of numerous amateur setups for customers and fellow amateurs. And with that, I hope you all welcome John Crook.
All right, thank you, Scott. Let me see and make sure everybody can see my screen here. Okay. Is everybody able to see that?
It looks perfect here, and we'll see it on YouTube shortly.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning, everybody. As stated, my name is John Crook. My call is N9 UPC. I first of all want to thank the MicroHAMS for going ahead and allowing me to present here. I actually like to do these kind of, I normally do webinars actually for clubs and groups and presentations, in addition to actually going out and doing them in the real world field here. But one of the things that I actually like about this here is that when I get to do these more special events, I can actually get, as I like to call it, a little bit granular. So today's not going to be a horse and pony show in any way, shape, or form. That's why I've entitled today's presentation, excuse me, Ones and Zeros of Yaesu System Fusion. So basically I wanted to touch on, because a lot of people tend to have questions about Fusion, about certain aspects of it, you know, why we did what we did or why we do what we do as Yaesu on there. So I thought this might be kind of a good one to kind of overview, kind of give you an idea where we came from, kind of why we did what we did, and then kind of explain some of the things there. And then by all means, if we still have time in this session here, or definitely if not, I will go over to the breakout room there and answer more questions if they are technical in nature, those kind of things like that on there. So I'm just going to skip this slide. It's basically kind of what Scott already kind of went over on there. But the first one here is called C4FM and Start a Fusion. And I want to take you, as I joke around saying, Sophia from the Golden Girls. Picture it, 2013. And what happened is that we actually released a product to the amateur market, which was known as C4FM, Digital Voice Technology for Amateurs. However, right away, we noticed there was something about it, which is we wanted to call it a different name. And the reason we wanted to call it a name was we called it Yaesu System Fusion. And the reason that we did is because of what the capabilities and what we wanted to be able to do for it. So first of all, it was a new type of digital voice communications for amateur radio that was released. And we want to stress that it was for amateur radio, because if you look at other digital voice communications out there, you're going to go to notice that what tends to happen a lot with it is that they are LMR public safety based that are converted over to be used in an amateur radio world. Well, the issue with that is you run into sometimes IDing issues, the capability issues, those kind of things like that on there. So that's where it was designed to be amateur radio. And that's why you notice that where ours is different than, let's say, and I'll use an example like DMR, P25, NextDen, those kind of things like that, is because you can actually put your call sign in the header. It's not a numerical number like some of the other things. That was one of the big things that was designed for there. But even still more so, when you started to actually look at it, it really kind of boiled down to saying, okay, here's the deal. It does have high quality digital voice. It does have ease of use and operations, versatility, and flexibility. Now, one of the things that people went along and instantly said on there is when we get this a lot, is that it was proprietary in nature. Actually, wrong. It is not. It is not proprietary in nature, and I'll even prove it to you how it's not. If you actually go to our Yaesu website, you can actually find the complete white paper that we issued and published on Yaesu System Fusion, that allows you to actually see what the C4 FM frequencies are, what those kind of things are. So we were doing this. Yes. Was it designed and created in-house? Yes, of course it was. I mean, everything was, and to some sort of degree. But what we did is we did allow it to people to do that. And if you take a look, there are other third-party products not made by Yaesu that do use and incorporate Yaesu System Fusion. So if it was a proprietary thing, those things would not be happening out on the market there today. So what did it consist of? It consisted basically, start out with initially at first handhelds and mobiles for simplex operation. But obviously simplex operation only goes so far. You need a infrastructure network to be put into place. And that's where the repeaters came in. And the repeaters were initially designed to be standalone operation and not designed to require the internet for linking or anything like that. It was just, basically, hey, you wanted to put up a repeater, you wanted to have a digital voice repeater, but you didn't necessarily want to go ahead and link out or anything like that. It would facilitate, it would meet those needs. It was very easy. And once again, that flexibility and versatility. It was also a creation at that same time when it was first released for the ability to people talk and link to one another if you chose to do so. So if you think about it as a hierarchy structure, you have a user level, you have an infrastructure level, and you have a networking level. And those are all key points in how the system can be developed and how the system can be used. Because we didn't want to lock people into a situation of saying, well, okay, if I want to really experience it, I need to keep connected to the internet, those kind of things like that. I can speak from personal experience here in northern Wisconsin. The internet doesn't go places. There are places where many times you will travel and there is no cell service whatsoever. The internet is just a smidge faster than dial-up. So having those aspects of things was really kind of detrimental if we required it to be there. So Fusion actually operates in 4 modes. The mode that's not listed on the screen here is actually the FM mode. Now, FM is standard in all theirs. We didn't build any sort of digital only type device, any sort of things like that whatsoever. We wanted to always have FM capability, hence why we call it Yaesu System Fusion. The fusion word is actually the fusing of analog and digital together, and I'll explain that in a little bit here. But you actually have, because we use C4FM, because we used FDMA technology, what we're allowed to do is, and for those of you that are aware of it, or maybe not aware of it, FDMA basically, and I use the example of is a roadway. All right. And if you think of it as a roadway, what we do is normally think of a 2-lane road, your normal, road that your city street, you drive down, those kind of things like that. Well, what happens is that if you have that roadway in place, what C4FM is it may be 1 lane going north, 1 lane going south, but C4FM with FDMA technology, frequency division type of technology, which FDMA is, what we can do is we can actually slice those lanes further down and make it more granular. So a 2-lane can become a 4-lane, or 4-lane might be able to become an 8-lane, those kind of things like that on there. That really played into a couple of different things of why we chose that, because people say, well, why didn't you choose TDMA? Why didn't you do this and this and this? Well, at the time Fusion was released, we looked at what was out there for the ability to do amplifiers, to do those kind of things like that. And we found out that FDMA was more user-friendly than it was TDMA, because TDMA is, timed. So it's, on and off, keying on and off, keying on and off, about like 30 milliseconds, that kind of thing like that on there. So we found out that amplification, other things like that on there. It really kind of boiled down to that, where it was like, man, we're really having difficulty trying to find stuff that would be there. Because if you take a handheld for an example, which I've done in the past, and you needed to have an amplifier on, I want to take my handheld from 5 to 50 watts, those kind of things like that on there, then guess what? You needed to go ahead and you needed to, get an amplifier. And if it was a TDMA, probably wasn't going to be able to find an amplifier. But if you did an FDMA, you could use a regular amplifier on there. So we did digital narrow. So that was the first one. Digital narrow we run on, if you look on the graph here, it's going to show the blue, or excuse me, purple side is going to be your digital voice. So it is compressed down to 6.25 kilohertz for bandwidth. Now on that other 6.25 kilohertz of bandwidth, to give you a total of 12.5, we run data, forward air correction. So if you ever used Fusion and you're using a DN, that's where you're going to get your GPS. That's where you're going to get your call sign routing. That's where you're going to get forward air correction. And you'll notice DN compared to VW mode, and DN stands for digital narrow, by the way. You're gonna get maybe just a little bit better range on there because of that forward air correction. Now, the other mode that was on there or we used is what we call VW mode. Now, VW stands for voice wide mode. So if you're looking at the graph, you're going to see that 12.5 kilohertz bandwidth is taken up completely by voice. There's no forward air correction. There's no nothing on there. There is the call sign that is passed because the call sign is part of the data heading or the header of the transmission in there. So that's why you always will see a call sign. But on voice wide, you don't necessarily get the GPS information. You don't necessarily get that forward air correction on there. Now, one other thing that we did add is we added a mode called DW. DW stands for data wide. And what we do is instead of having 12.5 kilohertz of voice, we have 12.5 kilohertz of data. Now, data wide is known, and I know we hear a lot of complaints about it, and that's saying, hey, wait a minute here. When can we access data wide? Well, we can't. Data wide is accessed through certain parts of the protocol only. So if you're sending a text message, if you're sending a picture message, more importantly, a lot of later stuff when you're syncing with a Wires X or handshaking with a Wires X device, or you are actually sending Fusion telecommands like up through the repeater, that's when you're going to go ahead and utilize the data wide mode on there. So another thing about Fusion is Fusion can transcode, and it's really the only digital voice mode out there that allows you to transcode without additional kind of equipment on there. And what I mean by transcoding is that you can, with our repeaters, our Wires X, the technology built into that, you can actually have a digital signal come into the repeater, and then the repeater can be set up to transcode it and put it out as FM only. Vice versa, FM can come in, digital can come out. And then you have higher tiers too, where it could be digital and analog coming in and then forced to go FM out, or digital analog coming in, forced to go digital out, or finally going ahead and having digital come in, digital go out, analog come in, or FM come in and FM comes out. That's what we call AMS mode. Okay. But it's not only the repeater level, like I said, it is Wires X. Wires X is the networking layer. And to give you a quick history on Wires X, if you had Wires 2 was the foundation of Wires X. And what Wires 2 did was it allowed you to take analog stations, come in, whether it be control stations, as I sometimes call it, or donor radios, sometimes referred to as, or connected directly to repeater and connect to other ones. Wires X is kind of that same thing on there, but the twist, the caveat onto it is now you could operate it in just strictly digital, or you can once again do the transcoding through the Wires X network, meaning one node can come in on digital and it can go out to an FM node or an or you know, however you wanted to set it up. That's how Wires X also does transcoding. So a lot of people ask, well, why did you use C4FM? Why didn't you use someone else's technology, something like that on there? So the reason we use C4FM is because one, it had been around since the mid 1990s for digital voice mode. Public safety had been using it for a while. If you take a look at, you know, actually from the US, I don't know if other people are from outside of the US are attending or not, but APCO 25 is a standard, also known as P25. It sets a standard of using C4FM and using FDMA. Now, with that kind of perfection that has been done with C4FM, with FDMA, it really kind of set the groundwork for saying, here's how you can have high quality digital voice. Here's how it would operate in principle and fundamental aspects. So that's why we looked at use C4FM and FDMA combination. Now, for people say, why didn't you go ahead and why didn't you just use P25? Well, we're not stupid, okay? Contrary to what some customers may believe, we are not stupid. And we knew if we made a P25 radio, I can guarantee you hands down that by the time that someone would walk into one of our dealers, purchase a C4FM radio, they probably would not even be back fully to their car, and they would have already modified it to try to talk and use it on public safety systems or systems that we probably shouldn't be operating on with an amateur radio, or we probably shouldn't be on at all. So that's why we did it differently. But also too is if you look at the P25 standard, that kind of thing didn't have that call sign in there. It has a number. So that's why we had to change it a little bit on there. But C4FM also offers that flexibility to be able to hop in between 12.5 kilohertz and 6.25 kilohertz with just a push of a button. Now, yes, there are other technologies that are out there now that did this, but you have to remember when concept to creation came out, we're talking actually 2010 is when it did. get first kind of thought of and started to be come to fruition and stuff. And it wasn't fully released until 2013. So other modes that are out there which can sort of do the same thing were really non-existent at that time. All right. So using C4FM also, once again, why? It offers a better, higher quality audio that we wanted to do for GMSK. That was the current one that was out there, was used a lot. GMSK. I personally, in the radio field, I used GMSK on some other type of business system, some trunk system, some glad like that aspects of it on there. The audio quality wasn't there. There were other alternatives that were felt that were better issues, better solutions, I should say, that solved audio issues. So that's why we chose C4FM. Once again, flexibility and expansion. C4FM allowed us to really kind of change and tweak things. And then the other thing we noticed is it did have a higher bit rate on there. And then when we're looking at higher bit rates, you have a little bit more room to play with in the data of the protocol of moving things back and forth between there. Whereas if you have a slower baud rate, that's when you're going to start to experience possible audio quality issues, possible flexibility issues, those kind of things. So all in essence, the 9600 baud with the C4FM FDMA really worked out really good. So let's talk about ways to communicate. Ways to communicate with Fusion are a couple of them. So first of all, you have a repeater. This is simple picture of a repeater. Obviously, one user comes in, talks into the repeater, and then it repeats it out. This picture is from our DR2X repeater manual kind of brochure on there. And what it does shows that the DR2X has some special features and functionality in there, but this is a basic concept of it. It's a repeater. Go in, go out. The one other thing that we were able to do with our repeater and our infrastructure is that we really wanted to allow people to take advantage of the VHF and UHF bands. So that's where another part of the Fusion aspect came into play. Not only did we try to make sure that we had this, how do I say this? It's conversion or connection between analog and digital, but with the repeaters, we wanted to also make it a understanding of versatility in the field of saying you can receive on VHF and transmit on UHF, or you can receive, on UHF and transmit on VHF. So you had that flexibility across the board there. And in addition, you could, once again, overlay or overlap how you wanted to do it. Did you want to come in digital? Did you want to go out analog? Those kind of things like that on there. However, one big thing that I think is very important is that we also saw where things could happen with the repeaters. And I bring this up because a lot of people ask the question, why don't you have a crossband repeater like for the mobiles or stuff like that on there? The reason that we don't have that is because if you think about how digital works, digital comes in, you put your analog voice into something, it goes into the vocoder, it encodes it into the technology you're using, sends it out over the air. Then the receiving radio receives it, unpacks it, or decodes it through the vocoder, and then puts it out to the speaker. Well, if you do that with the repeater, you're going to be going hopping, and then eventually, within even just one hop, you're going to go ahead and have the degrading of audio quality, and it's not going to be viable in any way, shape, or form. And some people say, well, no, it's not possible. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, if you take a digital signal, put it in something that receives a digital signal, which decodes it, puts it back into a digital signal, and sends it out again to something that does it, you're going to lose fidelity because you're basically making a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. So that's one of the things that the repeater cannot do. However, one of the things that we said, okay, I can see this issue is we made the repeaters capable of crossband. So that's obviously one way to do it. Second way to communicate would be using the WiresX software. Now, WiresX was initially designed to be a node-to-node type situation or a node-to-a-room type situation. For people who are unfamiliar with that or what we exactly mean by that, and you might date yourself if go back to the days of AOL, you've got mail, okay, kind of things. You had that instant messenger, which was one-to-one, or you had the chat room, which is one-to-many. WiresX was designed that way. But the best part about it is that you have a situation is you really kind of not all repeaters were available around the world. There were some areas of the country, or countries, I should say, that did not allow Fusion repeaters. So what ended up happening in that case is that you were able to then go ahead and take and let people who wanted to experience fusion but couldn't do a repeater, were not allowed to do a repeater, and to be able to connect those two together. Okay, so what basically happens in that case is that you could take a node, set it up in one place, and then you can connect to your friend, and then you have basically, you've created a connection between the two. As a matter of fact, what some people also did is they put up ad hoc repeaters, almost like some people call it a split site repeater kind of thing, where you have one site on one frequency, and then maybe a mile or two or something, or however further away or something like that, they could actually put up another node, and then they could put it on a frequency, let's say if it was VHF, 600 kilohertz away. And then what you could do is you can actually set your radio up to act like a repeater. But what would happen is you'd transmit into one site, and then you would receive your radio off of another site. So that's what WiresX did. And this is basically the device that is needed on there. Now, there has been a change to WiresX. And the thing that has changed the most on WiresX is that now we've actually allowed it to be a little more flexible, and you don't need an HRI 200 anymore. You can actually use a device that connects into there. Now, the concept behind that is what is coming up next year, which goes into our hybrid. So let's do IMRS first, and then we'll explain how the hybrid is. So with IMRS, what you had is you had people that said, I want to be able to connect my repeaters together, but I do not want to use WiresX. I don't want to use the internet whatsoever. I have either an intranet link, or some people have used ham mesh or Arden, or a tunneling or VPN server or something like that on there, that they did not want to have to use the traditional quote unquote internet. IMRS allowed you to do that in digital voice. And this allowed a true digital voice. Okay. And that basically allowed you to say, hey, I have two repeaters that are connected together, whether they're locally, whether they're far apart, whatever, it's going to allow you to do that. Now, that in essence gives you true digital voice, because you don't have to run through a server. You don't have to run through a bridge connection. You don't have to do anything. As long as the IP address out of one of the repeaters on the IMRS board can see the other repeater on the IMS board, then it allows you to go ahead and facilitate a communication that takes place on there. And I know that there's been people that have actually started to do different types of things with IMRS that have really kind of started to create these, what I kind of call a network of networks. I hear from people all the time that said it's great because I can have my 3 or 4 repeaters serving my county, my home, my town, anything like that. But then what ends up happening is people go ahead and saying, but when I want to connect via a different a group of repeaters, we simply key up, and we can go back from there. And this is what the IMRS board looks like. It's a tiny little board that fits into the back of the repeater. And as you see there, it has an Ethernet connection on there. That Ethernet connection then basically takes in whatever you need for a connection. So it could be, an RJ45 jack for connecting, once again, a cable to a switch that goes in the other repeater, goes out to the internet, whatever you need to do. As long as you have the IP address of the other repeater, the other location, you can program it up and use this board. Now, this is where I talk about the hybrid thing. Now, the hybrid thing was actually created, and I kind of actually fell into this category a lot myself, is that when I was traveling and I'd go to the office, what would end up happening is that there'd be times and situations where I wanted to talk back to my WiresX node back in Wisconsin. Well, guess what? I wasn't able to do so because with the HRI 200, yes, you do have to open up ports. You do have to do a couple things because of the capabilities of the HRI 200. So realistically, if you want to scare the hotel or have them put you on some sort of secret watch list, call down to the front desk and saying, listen, hi, I'm in room 402. I need you to go ahead and give me a non-natted global IP address, and I need you to open up the following ports to my room here, please. Well, that kind of does raise some concerns and gets you the manager of the hotel to come knocking on your door to find out what's going on. So what we did is with the HRI 200, or excuse me, HRI or PDN modes is what we came out with. It allows you to do what's on the picture here, which is to take a handheld device or a mobile device and connect it physically to the computer. And there you can use the microphone or the speaker, or you can use another radio to talk to it and then talk back to your WiresX node at home or a WiresX room. From there, you can see that it actually it can actually broadcast out then into, like if you have an IMRS network or stuff like that on there. So in that case, what ends up happening is now you're able to, in essence, call home, and now I can access my local repeater network. I can access my local WiresX node by using WiresX in that case there. And this is basically what it is. It's just a combination of the HRI 200 and the IMRS board that needs to be linked together. So that's it for my presentation. I'm sure people have questions on there, so that's why I kind of made it a little bit short here. And I guess, Scott, I guess I'll turn it back over to you to see if you have any sort of, anybody has any questions or anything like that on there.
So the one question I got is, and I think, yeah, it's not quite clear here. It says, what's the physical link for IRMS? The internet? I suspect it's the only real choice. So it sounded like, it looked like, well, you mentioned the internet or some kind of, some other type of network infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically the easiest way to describe IMRS is you need that IP data to go from repeater A to repeater B or repeater A to the multiple repeaters. So what I've done myself, for an example, is I've had mine in my house here. I have mine on a switch, or at the tower side, I should say. I have it on a switch, where if someone comes in VHF, it goes into a switch, and then it connects over to the UHF repeater, and then it's done locally. I know other people have actually put it on an intranet. They've actually hopped on a microwave network owned by the county because it doesn't go out and touch the internet. So basically, whatever you got to do to get IP traffic from point A to point B, you can do that. The personal experience one that I've done myself is I actually did a bunch of hops. So I went from my internet connection at my house here, then went via actually ham mesh to my site. Well, actually, let me put it in reverse. The repeater came via a ham mesh to my house here. That then hopped on a VPN tunnel. That VPN tunnel, of course, went by the internet. It went out to up by my dad's house there, where the other repeater was located close by. That actually then hopped on another ham mesh network that ran up to the tower site. And then from there, the packets were routed and everything like that, because I have All-Star and other things out there. Those packets were directly routed to the actual repeater itself. So really, as long as you can get all that IP data traffic from point A to point B, doesn't matter how it goes.
So does it, I guess, so you don't actually need, it's not consuming any or attaching to any resource that's internet based, then it really could be self-contained. This
Correct.
network could be entirely self-contained.
Correct.
Okay. So I do have another question here. It says, ask John to address the question of whether or not the voice codec is proprietary or not. I think his statements regarding the proprietary claims were not fully honest.
That's a good question. So we get that a lot. So no vocoder out there is, in essence, we wanted to say it. We could say all vocoders are proprietary, because all vocoders are made by DVSI. They have a patent on all the vocoders. They have the patent on the AMBE+2. They have the AMBE2, the IMBE, and everything like that. So if you want a vocoder, you have to go through DVSI. But the protocol that is put on the vocoder, so whether you're using C4FM as in a P25, whether you're using Yaesu System Fusion, whether you're using DMR, that protocol is then loaded onto that vocoder. So no, you could go ahead and you can make any sort of, if you make a software vocoding, those kind of things like that on there, it is totally possible to do on there. So and like I said, our paper is actually on our Yaesu website. If you go under the actual, I think if you go to yaesu.com, go under products, go under digital, and you look under file sections of the FT2, you will see that there's a white paper there, and it gives you all of the data that you need to go ahead and know how Fusion operates and stuff. And once again, you know, I make the claim and I make the statement on there. You know, there are other devices out there that are not Yaesu made that can process and use Yaesu System Fusion. So let's think about it, folks. I'll be honest with you. If it was proprietary, people would have to pay us for it. Okay, that's how proprietary works. If you want it, you have to pay for it. That's in essence the addition of proprietary. People aren't paying us for that, so people are using the Fusion protocol, and it's not proprietary on there.
So you mentioned the IMRS board.
Mm-hmm.
That goes into, you said it goes into the repeater, correct?
That is correct.
And does that go into the, what is it, the DR1X and the DR2X? Are those the two repeaters?
No, it only goes into the DR2X. The
Okay.
DR1X is no longer in production on there. And that was one of the things that when we made the DR2X from the DR1X, we looked at what a list of people wanted for updates. If we were able to facilitate the updates, we did that through firmwares. That's why there was a lot of firmware updates on the DR1X series. However, there were physical limitations what people wanted. People wanted a true digital voice linking, so that's where only the IMRS works in the DR2X.
Got it. Okay, that was my question. Back to these questions. Is the new repeater, I assume that's the DR2X 100% duty cycle?
We don't go by duty cycle. That's what a lot of people go ahead and say is that uh, basically we go by, the easiest way to describe is we go by 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which means that our internal PA temperature at 140 degrees Fahrenheit. If that PA temperature goes any higher than 140 degrees Fahrenheit, what will end up happening is the repeater actually will go ahead and shut down to the next power level. So if you're running at 50 watts, it will go back down to 20 watts. If you're at 20 watts, it will go back down to 5 watts. And then, as I said, if it goes back down to 5 watts, it will, there's problems, you know what I mean, on there. But in that case, yes. And we've done it in the California sun. We've taken the repeater out in the parking lot. We've opened up the lid on a warm day. We basically turned off the timeout timer on there. We put different radios on there and just let the brick go. And we took, the FLIR meter on there, and we were watching it. And as soon as it hit 140 degrees and was staying there, then boom, it automatically shut back down the power level on there. So that if that is 100% duty cycle in their minds, I guess that's up to interpretation.
So it's certainly safe. In any case, it's safe to let it run at its highest power level. You guys have these power down modes
Correct.
that allow safe operation. Got it.
Correct.
How is contention handled? First come, first serve, or is there a priority or break-in functionality?
For which one, sir?
I assume this is over the link versus local. I think those are the cases that I've seen in the past with linked systems. How do you handle contention?
Gotcha. Yeah, there is somewhat of a priority aspect on there, and it really kind of comes down to how you are going to map out your system. And that's what I tell people on there is you really have to kind of map out. There are timers that are involved to give you priority versus non-priority. There is an A and a B side to the DR2X. So in that regards, in that case, you can go ahead and someone can come in on the A side, someone can come in on the B side. That's where you would go ahead and select your priority on there. So there are a couple different options. So it really, I guess, boils down to saying how does it play all together.
Right. That is the last question I have currently, and I guess if you're willing to hang out, it sounded like you were willing to hang out for a little longer in the breakout room.
Yes.
I would invite people over there. We should have the URL for the breakout, or you should already have the URL for the breakout room, and the people in the YouTube channel should be getting it in their chat window right now. Correct, Kenny? He's delayed, so it'll take a while. All right. So thank you very much for coming. Yeah, I don't see any more questions. I appreciate the presentation. Is it possible for us to put you on the spot here? I was going to send you an email about getting a copy of it. Is that an option that we could?
Yeah, we could take a look at getting something over to you.
All right, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much again, John. And I think we're going to get ready to queue up the next person, and we've got some information that we can put online. Thanks.
move out to our breakout room for direct questions. The breakout room will be lightly moderated to ensure everyone has an opportunity to ask questions. It might be worth watching the chat channel in the breakout room as well to get any information that's necessary.
Nobody has anything more.
At the same time, I'll be introducing
myself and get set up for the next.
Hello, I'm Scott, N7SS, the MHDC chair. Let's talk about the setup that we have today.
Go ahead.
We wanted to provide the best online experience for an unknown number of
using the webinar
Our normal
chat.
physical attendance averages
Or
about
if you
100
guys want to
people
take this down, I'll give you my
online
cell
with
phone
no
number.
other major events pending. Who knows how
Are
many
you
will
going to
see
do
it.
an introduction?
We've streamed it to YouTube successfully in the past.
Okay, that's
We can handle any number of people. There's a chat channel and many smart TVs can support
ready to copy.
YouTube directly.
Okay.
You can recline in your favorite chair and watch us live on TV instead of squinting over some app or
1 4.
The YouTube chat questions are helpful, but not the interactive
Message so that I get a lot of text. This is I'm still hearing for attorney's cell phone too. Oh, because it's all signed on you want to pay at the beginning. Skype. That's what I'm saying. And then can't use them. Right? Okay, great. Go inside. There's us. Switch over to the, go back to the presentations. Yes. They're all here. Steve, would you go ahead and mute yourself as well? Mute your microphone. Perfect. All right. Go ahead. Just go ahead and start talking.
Going live. So good morning for a bunch of us anyway. Our next speaker is Phil Sherritt, W4PHS. He's a career software developer and member of the WinLink development team. Phil holds an extra class PAM license and a commercial GROL license. Phil has a degree in physics. He's been developing a wide variety of software for more than 40 years. His work in the WinLink team involves developing and supporting the WinLink Express client program and programs used by RMS Tri-Mode, RMS Relay, and RMS Packet. For additional information about Phil, see his QRZ page there at qrz.com. It's W4PHS. And please welcome Phil Sherritt, Steve Waterman, and Ward Hutchins are actually all on the line. And they're going to talk to you about some really cool features of the WinLink Express.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning to everyone. This is Phil, and this is PHS speaking. I'm one of the WinLink developers, and when Scott contacted us about this presentation, he said that most of the attendees would probably be experienced WinLink users, so to the point of going through their typical introduction of what is WinLink, I will have one slide on that, but I'm going to take a little bit of a talk about some of the features that are
We had a loop problem earlier, so
This is my input. This is an input. So I'm just able to and change that to that's the only one. Let's try to return that one on. Let's do this thing. Turn this one on. Turn this one on.
sort of almost less option.
Turn this one on. Everything's off except this one.
Sort of different problems. Right? Exactly. That's always the case.
That's me. That's what's the only thing. My mic is on. That's the only place we can select this. That's the only here. So one here. This. This. Now there's nothing selected. The only thing that's selected is this one also. This one. Yeah. Select one of those. That's what I selected last time. That's right. One, two, three. Just turn for the system.
Sorry.
Can you mute your mic? It's me. Just for a second. It's not you.
Can you hear me? Hello? You
Yeah,
might
I
be
can hear.
hearing- Okay, I hear something like crackling going on YouTube, like somebody's tapping a microphone. That's it. This is Steve Waterman.
It sounds like we need to give them some audio so they can resolve this.
Okay, this is Phil, W4PHS in Brentwood, Tennessee. I'm the presenter on the WinLink radio email system, and we're standing by to get the YouTube audio feed working.
And maybe actually Steve and Laura could do a little introduction, because I only had an introduction for you.
All right,
Let's see if any We'll find out if it actually ends up going out. Laura?
Oh, okay. Hi, this is, let me turn the video on. I'm Laura Cutchins, W3QA, located in Pamlico County, North Carolina, president of the Amateur Radio Safety Foundation, longtime contributor technically to mostly web development and so forth on the WinLink development team. Longtime user of WinLink since roughly the year 2000, and also a long-time hand.
Do you have a software development background too, or no?
Yes, I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur in development of both hardware and software, mainly dealing with analytical instrumentation.
Steve, how about you?
Okay, my name's Steve Waterman. I've been an amateur radio operator since 1955. Got started with WinLink by listening to a presentation by Vic Poor at a Dayton RIDI dinner at the guests of Mel Witten K0PFX. And I got hooked at that point with AppLink, Amtor Packet Link, prior to Windows. Purpose of AppLink was to bring packet networks together using HF Amtor, and then of course Clover, and then Pactor. Got involved with WinLink since the outset, and have been with what we now call the WinLink development team, which is a team of two, Steve Waterman and Vic Poor, and then Steve Waterman and then a man named Hans Kessler, who took it over at the time. From that point, moved on to form a WinLink development team, and then the Amateur Radio Safety Foundation. When Vic Poor passed away, I defaulted as president, and until Laura Cutchins took over, 2 years ago. What I do with the WinLink product is to promote it and provide use for it, sort of the liaison between the outside world and the developers. WinLink is user-driven, and feedback to the people like Phil and Laura is primary. Does that help?
That's fantastic. So now you and Phil are both in Tennessee, correct?
We're both in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm on the wrong side of the tracks in the mansion.
The rest of the team is far flung, various corners of the world, but most of the core team is here in the United States, in San Diego, Nova Scotia, Florida, United States, Colorado. Yeah, we're a virtual team, and it works well. What can we say? We love tools like this.
Yeah, one of the most recent, I guess I call it market
audio here again. You have to turn those off. And the audio goes away.